Hello, listeners. Welcome to the Beatbox show where we play and talk about video game music and the games they're from. We're your hosts. I'm Tom.
And I'm Phil.
And we'll journey from the old to the new and everything else in between. So kick back, relax, and enjoy the beats.
Oh, well, I don't know about you, Tom. I really enjoyed last episode that we did. I've been really thinking about that Ken theme. I think it's been stuck in my head. But I think also the F-Zero theme has been stuck in my head because it's so similar. So similar.
Almost certainly. You think you might be able to lose a stone or two in the next 6 months?
Oh, I mean, probably a stone a month. 6 stone. I'll be a very small boy.
So, for this week, I have dug up. I've got some repeating, sort of recurring tracks. I've got another that I don't think you've heard before, and I've got another classic banger. So I think we just jump straight back into it.
Cool. Let's go for it.
All right. Spinning it up.
Okay, now bear with me here. I'm going to go out with a completely radical guess, okay? And it's not a game that I've played. Is it Cuphead?
It is not.
Oh, I've not played Cuphead. So the reason why I think that is it sounds very circusy. It sounds very, flat top. Is that the right word? High top or whatever it is. The other I had in my head was Kirby, like a really new Kirby game. I think there was one that came out recently, just because it sounds very kind of jolly, but also a bit sinister in a way.
It could be King DDD's Parade.
Oh my god!
All his
yes,
minions around.
Exactly. I think is it from Kirby?
It's not.
Okay.
This is what I was referencing earlier. I told you last week that I really wanted to show you more music from this game. So do you remember what it could be?
Lost Ark.
It is indeed.
Yes.
It's Lost Ark. Really? It is.
What a difference from the one you played last time. This is crazy.
So, to avoid sort of repeating myself from the prior episode, a quick rundown of this is why I wanted to bring it to you. I've got even more tracks from this sort of whole soundtrack that I think I could bring. This is one of the other final bosses, the Legion Commanders. And when I said they all had their own little themes and their own little thematics, I don't think I could show the difference to you more than bringing Cakul Sadon's track. This guy is the boss of, or the demon of chaos. And the hilarious thing about him is he has a sort of Joker vibe, but it's way more light-hearted in the sense of he isn't one demon, he's actually two. Cakul Sadon is two people. It's Cakul and Sadon. And one of them is a big joke character, and one of them is like a little jester that sits on his shoulders. And they're a comedy duo, essentially.
God, yeah.
And talking on themes we talked about in previous episodes, this music is completely diegetic.
Oh, like there's a band there playing it?
When he brings you into this arena, he sucks you into this playbook, like a pop-up book. And the whole theme is like pop-up book. So, you know, cardboard flips up and it's a big screaming clown or whatever that's supposed to spook you and scare you. And this whole thing takes place like surrounded by a circus tent.
Yeah.
And you can just tell somewhere in this place, he's got like a whole orchestra of 20 demons playing this in the background that he loves listening to.
Like the torment of the orchestra.
Yeah, literally. Thematic is so strong in this fight. I would say out of all the fights, it may not be my favorite, but God, is it so rich. The Akan one is, you know, it's necromancers, it's death, it's it's I will take your soul is mine. But this is literally, he's fighting you in a circus.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I was definitely going to say like creepy clown sort of vibes. Yeah, no, that's really cool. So I feel like I need to dive more into this Lost Ark. So you said last time it's an ARPG, and it's like Diablo, where you're like facing it down, aren't you? So I imagine there are a number of different bosses. Like you've shown me this one and the one last time.
Yeah, that was Akan.
Are there more bosses? Are these the only two? I imagine not.
Yes. So the thing that made this game really popular is it had been out in Korea for about 2 years, and they were sort of losing the player base a little bit. They really didn't know what to do. Mm-hmm. And people were saying, you know, they started dabbling with some bosses, and people said this was really fun. So it's either a 4-man, so in Cakul Sadon's case, it's a 4-man dungeon or raid, and the other large-sized raid is an 8-man. So Akan is an 8-man, Vicus is an 8-man, Vultan is an 8-man. But it's what made the game really push itself to the forefront. The first Legion Commander Vultan is the easiest. He's also the best designed ARPG fight I've ever played. It's perfect. Everything is telegraphed. His patterns are knowledgeable. When you go in, you're going to feel completely lost. However, when you've done it 100 times like I have, it's muscle memory. You can do the entire thing blind and on sound cues.
Is this all end game content as well? I don't know. Is it like a leveling system, or is this all available to you at the beginning?
Unfortunately, it's a Korean MMO. So when the MMO released and everyone was leveling up at the same time, there's a huge campaign that's average at best. But it's world spanning and it's awesome, and the combat is just so juicy. Unlike Diablo, where you have 4 abilities, you have 8 abilities in Lost Ark and an ultimate, and all of them have what they call tripods, which is essentially like a WoW talent system.
Okay.
And it doesn't do 5% extra damage. It will change the ability to completely. So an example being there's a move on the Lance Master character, or Glavia, as they're called in the Western version, where she leaps down onto the floor with her spear, jumps up in the air, lands down, big crash, and then does like a little explosion. But what you can do instead is remove the explosion, increase the crit rate, and you do more damage that way.
Okay.
And the combat is just juicy. It's lovely.
Yeah, there's nothing better than a good boss fight, is there?
Nothing, and that is the selling point of Lost Ark. Everything surrounding it is Korean MMO, which is the biggest shame. That's changing. Essentially, the director, who was famous being probably one of the best game directors I've ever seen in terms of personal presence on conventions and on stages, he plays the game as well anonymously on characters, so he knows what's going on. He knows what it feels like, and he's sort of like making the game easier, making the barriers to entry a little lower, which is definitely the biggest daunting thing for Lost Ark. It has a massive issue getting people to these endgame fights. So now they do these things called passes, where when you make a character, it's almost like a fast track. The fast tracks at the moment will get you all the way to Belshazzar, which is the infamous raid from Lost Ark. And that way you get to play Volton, Vicus, Kakul Sadon, and Belshazzar, and Akan comes after that.
Yeah, but back to the music, I think I'm trying to pick out some of the instruments in my head. There was definitely like that sort of honky tonk sort of piano. I mean, it's interesting that, you know, I think if you were to play this to anyone, regardless of if they, you know, liked video game music or not, I feel like they would sort of guess that, you know, it's a very chaotic environment. It's a very, you know, a bit sadistic, I guess you could say as well. And I think, you know, the image of the clown is fantastic for that. And, you know, as you said, I think, what was it? One of the characters is it the personification of a clown or a jester of sorts?
One of them is a clown, and the small guy who's ironically got the really deep, menacing voice. He's like a small little jester, almost like a Pinocchio type puppet.
Yeah.
And ironically, as you said earlier, one of his instruments is a trumpet, and there's trumpets throughout the whole track.
Oh, interesting. Oh, there you go. So it's a definitely good use of diegetic sound within the game. That's really interesting. But yeah, I mean, I think that must have been such a fun piece of music to create. Definitely. There's just so much going on, so many different things. I think one thing I noticed, there's this sort of violin ascending and descending pattern, which is very similar to the Harry Potter theme, where the violins do this, and they go back down again. That was a great piece of music, and honestly, it's so different from the other Lost Ark one that you played before. Is it time for my next one?
I think you should get right into it, bud.
Okay. Well, a bit of intro then on the three that I will be going for you. So the first one, I've kind of tried to get two birds with one stone here. So I'm hoping it's a game that you maybe have not played, and as well, it's a game that was released recently as well. So two birds with one stone with this one. The other two, I'm kind of guessing that you... Well, I'm heavily guessing that you will have definitely either played them or know the music from them. So my wild card is this first one. But I guess we'll head straight into it. Let me know.
Well, that was pretty.
It's lovely, isn't it? It warms my heart hearing this.
And
Any
I know
guesses?
I've brought this up before.
Mm.
I feel it feels Pixar-ish, Disney.
Mm-hmm.
That sort of final scene in a Disney film where something incredible happens, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And there's that sort of like 2 minutes of like slow pace, like the whole thing coming together, the whole journey.
There was meaning behind my struggle, sort of moment.
Yes. Yes, I'm trying to think. You said it was recent.
Yeah.
Thinking indie game. It's not Ori and the Blind Forest, Ori and the Will of the Wisp. I think is the one I'm on about. The second one, or was that the Blind Forest? Can't remember. Don't think it's Ori, but it could be. There's very happy moments at the end of Ori. I remember there's a scene at the end where the owl swoops down and saves everyone or something, saves the forest. You know what? It's a good as a guess as I'm gonna make. I'll go Ori and the Blind Forest.
It's not Ori and the Blind Forest, although I appreciate the guess of that. No, it's not. Do you want to have another guess, or is that your final one?
Nothing else is springing to mind. I'm going to be honest.
No. Well, this is the game It Takes Two. If you've heard of it.
Oh, hey, yeah.
Yeah.
One game of the year, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's it's a classic co-op game. So the composer of this, Gustav Grefberg and Christopher Eng. So Gustav did a lot of games for the company that did It Takes Two. They did Brothers, Tale of Two Sons, I believe, is one that jumped out to me. And yeah, if people don't know the narrative of It Takes Two, it follows two sort of a couple who are going through the midst of a divorce, and their child makes a wish, and the parents are forced into sort of these tiny doll-like bodies, and they have to find a way back to their normal bodies. And it's a two-player co-op game, which I played with my partner, and it's it's such an experience. It's a lovely game throughout, and one of the best things about it is that it incorporates so many different video game genre styles. It's the way it works is that as you proceed level by level, each of the two people, so you play as either the woman or the man, and each of them gets a different power-up that they can use specifically for that level, which helps you for the platforming aspect of it, which helps you for the action part of it, and you really do have to work together in order to complete the level. And it's such a nice little ribbon on top, isn't it, so that they are in the midst of also fixing their relationship. And it's such a wonderful game, and it plays incredibly well if you've got someone else who you can play with. So yeah, one Game of the Year award, as you said. I think, in comparison to the other games as well that were in that category, we're looking at things like Deathloop, made by one of the subsidiaries of Bethesda. You have Resident Evil Village, Capcom, Metroid Dread, Nintendo. These are some
very different games to It Takes Two.
Yeah, absolutely, and from such bigger companies as well, with much more budget in their control. And to have something like It Takes Two come out and take the prize, the winning prize, is fantastic, I think, and it really does show the love that went into making this game.
Well, when I first saw this game coming around, sort of doing the rounds, I saw that they'd paid a bunch of streamers to play it, and I sort of saw the first couple of hours or so, and went, okay, so it's unironically, I got this kind of on the money. It's a Pixar divorce simulator.
It is, yeah. Divorce simulator. That's a game that I think I would pay to get developed. Imagine.
It's I can just tell by the music. I'm going to take a guess. I'm going to say that they weren't divorced, and they definitely don't stay as dolls.
Yeah.
Does that play when they like transform back in that Pixar moment?
So this, I want to say, is the sort of the title screen. But what happens? So you hear a woman's voice towards the end of that, and yeah. So as the game progresses, you know, they're figuring out ways in which they could potentially get back into their adult bodies, and there's a final level essentially where the woman has to perform for like all of these inanimate objects that have suddenly come alive, essentially, and the husband is trying to spur her on, you know, to regain her self-confidence in this singing, and the whole level is about you finding all of these different instruments and backing and speakers and microphone, things like that, and the ending is obviously her singing in front of all of these inanimate creatures, and yeah, it's like a Beauty and the Beast transformation moment a little bit, but it honestly it is wonderful, and it is really beautiful, and I think it's a topic we often cover in these episodes. Actually, it's about the realism of a game and sort of how it sucks you into that world. And I think the dichotomy between, you know, such a kind of a cartoony, kiddish sort of vibe with the very real, you know, couple of, you know, on the verge of divorce is such a wonderful mix and mash, I think, and it really does play to its strengths for that.
But I didn't realize I've seen countless bits of footage from this game, and every single one of them is in a different scenario. So
Yes.
As you said, these two get lots of powers in very unique circumstances, whether or not that's escaping the shed and one of them gets a ground pound and the other gets a way to hack like wires or something. But then suddenly you're in this mystical realm, you know, talking to something else, and you get another cool like ability.
It's not just the abilities that change, it's the actual way that the game plays as well. So there's a level, for example, where you have a top-down moment, and it plays exactly like an old school Diablo does, and you have different abilities, and you're playing as a mage and a fighter, and it is so clever, and it gives you just enough to want more, and then it takes it away and gives you a new thing. Exactly, leaves you wanting more from it, and it does it so well.
Well, from a production point, that must be perfect, because there are certainly, you know, hundreds of games I can talk about where you get something and by the end of the hour you're thinking, yeah, I'm kind of done with the gimmick. And you know, you could talk about like a jetpack level or something, or swimming levels in Sonic and Mario. Where you're like, Christ, this was unique and fun for about 10 minutes, and now I am drowning again and again, and it's janky. But you've hit the nail on the head there. The ability for a game to create essentially, and as I said, every clip I watch of this, I can comfortably say I have seen new bits of the game. To create 20 mini games inside of a game, tie them together, and do them all to like a 7 out of 10 level, to the point where you're just content with all of it. I can see why it won Game of the Year. An accomplishment, to be sure.
The final point I want to make on this actually is the because I've just realised this, is the in that level, obviously when you're collecting all of these different instruments, again it utilises that diegetic sound. By the music isn't just coming from a track that plays whilst the characters are of doing their thing. It's the final piece that you hear, you know, the characters in the game are interacting with, and you know, when she sings her final song and the husband is listening to her sing, you know, that is a real good prime example of diegetic sound, that he, the character, is hearing the music that we, the player, also hear, and that it just is icing on the cake. I love it, absolutely love it.
I think a final bit to touch on in terms of like capturing that feeling of the game you were just talking about. I have a thing throughout my life that, especially tied to music, where, you know, music is so foreign to us in terms of, you know, you listen to a Taylor Swift song, you have no connection to Taylor Swift, but hearing someone you know playing music in front of you can feel so raw and can feel so
intimate. It's
exposed and intimate, exactly, because, you know, and I think a lot of people don't deal with that very well. The same types of people who don't like uncomfortable silences, where you're basically sitting there fidgeting 3.5 minutes, going like, you know, I can't wait for this to end so we can go back to having a normal friendship.
Yeah.
But I grew up with a friend who used to play music, and she also played music. She played piano, played music from video games, and I can comfortably tell you, I don't think I'd love video game music quite so much as when. As if I had never gone through that, because hearing that there, and she hated having other people listen to her play, but she was like, the reason why I like you listening to my music is because you just shut up and listen, and you enjoy it.
Well,
and you're not looking to say something, you're not looking to do anything, you're just enjoying what I'm playing.
And that is a lovely mirror of the game It Takes Two, because, you know,
Exactly.
she isn't. You know, she doesn't want to perform. She's you know, she's lacking in that self-confidence, and and when she does, she, you know, makes the whole room light up, and
he just
spurs
listens.
on the chance. Yeah, and he just listens. Yeah,
and falls in love all over again.
Yeah, well, you know, it's not right at that moment, but, you know,
Oh,
it's a culmination of all the events.
Divorce is still on the cards.
My partner and I were saying, imagine at the end of all of this, they were like, yeah, well, we're still getting divorced, aren't we?
Professional singer for a wife and can compose great pieces, but you know, that's not good enough for me. We seem to be doing this a lot on recent episodes. A left turn.
Yeah.
Let me take you back a little bit. Let me bring you to a dark, gritty, marching anthem from a game that I played when I was quite young. Coming right up.
Yeah, yeah, cool. I like it.
I gave you a little hint with the marching anthem.
You
There.
did. Now, my inclination is to say that this is from a real time strategy game, and I have no basis for that apart from the fact that it sounds like it would fit in Warcraft 3. But I've played Warcraft 3 to death, and I feel like it's not from that game. So my guess. Well, I had two guesses. It was either going to be like a Rome Total War or something like StarCraft.
Oh, I thought you were going to get it.
Oh no! Have I missed it? Oh, what is it?
Buddy, it is a real-time strategy game.
It is.
But this is the game I think I knew you wouldn't know. But I brought this as a piece from Dawn of War 2, which is a Warhammer 40,000 game, real-time strategy.
Of course.
So the reason I brought this is, I swear, THQ went bust eventually. And their music became royalty free as a result. Every Total War creator, every StarCraft creator, every Warhammer creator, I swear plays this in every single video. Looping in the background as they explain the armies, or looping in the background as like they're talking over a topic. This will be playing in the background. And it is a marching anthem perfectly describing the Angels of Death, which is its namesake. This track plays in the menu.
Okay. Yeah, it felt like menu music for me. Like I was trying to think, there's a lot going on. I think if you are like, so you know, when you're playing an RTS game, if you play like a specific race or a specific faction, you have background music specific to that faction. And I was trying to think that it doesn't sound like you would hear this whilst playing a specific faction.
Yeah, it's iconic for me because I spent hundreds of hours hearing this sat in lobbies waiting for games to start.
Right, yeah. Normally how it is. Back in the days of LAN and all that.
Yeah, for sure. There's some aspects in there that are, I think if you were to take this track as a whole, I think you can call it pretty generic. However, the composer for this piece, which is Doyle Donahue, did such a good job on Dawn of War 2 and captured 40k dark, gritty space marines versus aliens and heretics and Xenos so well that, God, they just brought him back for all the expansions. They brought him back for Battlefleet Gothic Armada, Space Hulk Deathwing, for Warhammer 40k Chaos Gate. They made him come back for Hammer and Bolter. Unfortunately, he was part of Aliens Dark Descent, which... Oh no, it's not the bad one. It's a good Aliens game. I think it's like an XCOM Aliens type game.
Okay.
But you can tell how this dark, gritty 40k soundtrack would fit in an Aliens universe.
Now, from what I understand of the Warhammer lore, is that it is extremely complex and there is a lot of things happening and a lot of different people getting angry at other people. And I think I've once tried to have a read of it, and I'm pretty sure it starts like it all begins with the assassination of this kind of king, or or something like that.
I was going to read it out as
the whole thing.
Joke. It's hilarious. Everything starts like this. So every game, every book, every even like the audio books, read them out. Even the TV shows that are going to come out in the future will have this at the beginning, because as you said, it's so extensive.
Yeah.
It needs an aesthetic piece of writing that pulls you in and gives the setting. But there's so much lore behind it. It has to be distilled to this. So I'll read you out the first paragraph.
Yeah, go for it.
It is the 41st millennium. For more than 100 centuries, the Emperor has sat immobile on the golden throne of Earth. He is the master of mankind, by the will of the gods, and a master of 1,000,000 worlds by the might of his inexhaustible army. He is a rotting carcass, writhing invisibly with the power from the dark age of technology. He is the carrion lord of the Imperium, for whom 1,000 souls are sacrificed every day, so that he may never truly die.
Wow. My goodness, imagine having that every time.
It's a little grim dark.
But to be fair, like, sometimes you need that exposition, don't you, to really set the scene, as you said. And, you know, imagine some sort of... I'm trying to think of a good voice actor now. But, like, yeah, a gritty voice reading that at the start of a game or the start of a TV show. Yeah, it would work. Very similar to a Star Wars-esque kind of thing.
The rule of Warhammer is that everything's allowed. I love it because literally every extreme from every other universe adds a level to it and then does it better somehow. There is everything in there, from fascism, democracy, to communism, to Xenos, to literally anything. Every race is a hyper-realistic or hyper-realized ideal of what the sort of underlying narrative for that faction wants to be.
Okay. Is that reflected in their music?
Yes.
Do you reckon?
Massively.
Okay.
So, the Tau music, which is the sort of... it's not communist, but it is. Sort of, you know, everyone's allowed here, everyone's equal, and you will die for the cause. Mm-hmm. However, if you resist us, we will just mow over you.
Right.
But their music is it feels unified, it feels hopeful, kind of futuristic. It's that early stages of a growing sort of empire, not realizing that they are surrounded by these thousands of year old empire. That if they were to kick the hornet's nest, they would be overwhelmed in an instant. The Eldar are space elves, but again, they've been around for longer than most factions on the planet. The Orcs are hilarious because they are essentially London Cockney boys mixed with pirates, mixed with Orcs. So
that's cool.
They go around, they're like, oh, the Umis and me want to have a nice little racket going on the battlefield.
Oh,
and I'm going to kick their teeth in and sell them for coin. That type of Orc.
Love it. Well, it's what you want, don't you?
Yeah. But you're right, every faction has a perfect sort of level that you can sort of feel the faction on. And then once you dip your fingers in the pie, you realize the pie is a mile deep. And it just keeps going. And the lore and the books are there, and the games are there, and the tabletop is there. And there's 40 years of narrative at this point.
Yeah.
On top of each other.
Yeah. I'm just thinking back as well. Pardon me. I'm thinking back to why I thought it was an RTS game. And I think I've come to an answer. It's because the piece that you played me, it sounds very military-esque, you know, with the sort of the marching drum and the fanfare of brass, and you don't typically see military music, I guess, in a game that isn't an RTS, because that's kind of what real-time strategy is about. It's about using military / factions in order to conquest or to win over other factions or races or whatever. So I think that's why it in my head it made sense that it was going to be an RTS.
To build upon that, two other points in the song that are generically used in the same situation as you were talking about is the drums of war. Throughout the whole piece, there's a and that marching that you'll play before a battle. And the other piece is, instead of cymbals being pressed together, it's a hammer on an anvil.
Yes,
the piece.
Like in the sense of construction. That was the other thing that I was thinking of. Like, that sort of like building building sound. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think you're bang on the money in that analysis.
Bang on the money. Bang on the money.
Right,
well,
leveling up for the next one.
Leveling up indeed. I think you'll get this pretty much straight away.
The pressure.
Well, no, I would bet money on it that you're going to get this straight away. But I think this piece of music has such a weight to it that can't be explained to people that haven't played this game. And if you've played this game, you understand that weight and you understand the load that comes with this music. So yeah, we'll get right into it.
Well, there's only one game I know that can be that bleak. I know the track. This is The Walking Dead Telltale.
It is The Walking Dead Telltale. For me, I think an absolute masterpiece, especially for a game that I first played on my phone. Like I downloaded this from the App Store, and I played.
I forgot they were episodic.
Yeah, and they were episodic as well, which feels insane. So yeah, if people don't know the Telltale games, the Walking Dead Telltale games, it's a series of kind of point and click games where you interact with your environment. And the Walking Dead universe is a post-apocalyptic zombie apocalypse specifically world. And you are a person surviving in this apocalypse. And in the Telltale games, the main character Lee you play as, and you come across a little girl Clementine, and the story follows your interaction with Clementine and the other people that you meet along the way. And I don't think it's a spoiler to say that apocalyptic games are going to be fairly sad, but this game is a very sad game, and it's a very very plays on your heartstrings, definitely.
Yeah, this is definitely a genre that was popularized by David Cage. who made a game pretty famously known called Heavy Rain. Heavy Rain is sort of the same thing. You'll play as a character perspective, sort of almost instance areas you walk about in between interactable cuts where you will have choices, or at least the game says you have choices, and what you do and what you don't do develops story. I can comfortably say that I think Heavy Rain might be a better game. A newer version of the game that people might know if you haven't been in the gaming industry for very long is Detroit Become Human, which is a game about AI finding their place. But I can say that the Walking Dead one for me has such a special place in my heart.
Oh yeah.
The Lee and Clementine, it controversially, it did the Joel and Ellie thing before that came out.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think did it better.
Yeah, I think there's something very new, I think, about the interaction of an adult and a child, and it's done in media so many times, where you find the child just really insufferable, and the way that this game does it is that it makes you really care about Clementine, which is
Clementine.
Yeah,
it's just so sweet.
Yeah, like the name, I guess. And I think it portrays to the innocence of youth and the innocence of people in general in a world that has been ravaged by this apocalyptic event, and it is essentially that innocence that she has of the world, not just because it's apocalyptic, but she's a child and she might not necessarily understand the world if it weren't apocalyptic, for example.
I think a great example of that childhood innocence, and especially as you said earlier, that you tend to find child characters done on purpose quite annoyingly and stereotypically. Coming back to the consequences, there's a scene where Lee, who's a very sort of straight and narrow guy, says it how it is, learns to hold back saying things to Clem, and essentially teaches her how to survive, and says, look, you need to cut your hair, because if someone grabs your hair and you get bitten, then that's it, and she fights against it profusely, because as a child, those changes, those things that you've had for so long, makes you feel really vulnerable that someone has the power to take that away from you.
And it's also the fact that it's the fact that she doesn't understand her own mortality as well as a child. Those are the things that you can't explain as an adult, and we wouldn't need to explain them ever to a child. How old is she supposed to be? She's like 6 years old, isn't she? Like
I think she's a little older. I think she's about 10, 11.
I don't think she is.
Maybe she is younger. In the first one, maybe she is. Maybe she's like 8. I'm not sure.
Let me have a
look.
But
I think, as I said with the scene with the hair, if you don't press that issue to her, it has consequences. Mm-hmm. If you go, oh, okay, no worries, like, don't worry. She gets grabbed and someone does die because she has to be saved.
Yeah.
And that's the choice that you made.
Yeah.
The game is full of stuff like that. I think in the end, Telltale, when this first came out, was like a whole new way of gaming, but then people quickly realized that they hadn't made as many real choices as you would have thought. Yeah. There are 2 or 3 endings for each of them, which really shamed them in the end. But I think the point is with Walking Dead 1 is that you didn't need 4 choices by the end of the game, because the endings are just so good. I can say that The Walking Dead 1, the final episodic piece, is probably one of the only games for quite a while at that point in my life which made me emotional.
Yeah, so I just looked it up. She was 8 years old in the first season of The Walking Dead. Yeah, you're right. Like it definitely makes you emotional for the last episode, because you grow so attached to these characters, um, and you're absolutely right. Like the formula for Telltale Games, it was just starting to really get its foothold in really hooking people into their games, and you know what? I don't really mind that there's not a lot of choices. I mean, it kind of plays out like a movie would.
Yeah.
Or even a choose your own adventure book, which is kind of what it is, really.
Yeah.
Just because you don't have many choices doesn't mean you don't enjoy the ride, or the read, I guess. And I think when we look at some of the earlier Telltale games, again, we're in a period of time where internet usage wasn't perhaps as common as it is now. So it was less easy, perhaps, maybe to speak with other people on the internet about what they had done and what you had done. But I remember when I played it, it felt very, very unique to you, doesn't it? And it always comes up with those, oh, Clementine doesn't approve of that, sort of thing.
Yes.
Or
yes. Which we see now in stuff like Baldur's Gate, where it does have more of a consequence. But in these original games, as you said, I don't mind there not being endings, because I think the few endings you do get are all great. I've seen all of them. I'm happy I got the one I did. Sad as it is.
Yeah.
But for sure, for me, coming back to the music, there's an idea in post-apocalyptic shows and or games that there has to be something going on all the time. But if that music doesn't tell you anything about this game, a lot of this game takes place in the moments between action. You'll have 4 to 5 hours of content without action, and then some cliffhangers and some peaks in gameplay. And that slow, almost somber grind, you can almost picture Lee sat on his bed, Clementine's fallen asleep, thinking, what are we doing this for? Why are we trying to live in this post-apocalyptic world? Because there's nothing but danger. But it's that hope in Clementine and the future that Lee continues to fight.
So I didn't tell you the name of this piece of music, and I think you've encapsulated it perfectly. And it's called "Alive Inside."
Wow!
I think you've absolutely got it right, and that is exactly what this piece is about. Is that the dead are all around us. They're dead inside, and they look dead outside. We look dead outside, but still inside we are alive. Yeah. What an amazing analysis, Tom. That was great.
Oh, thank you. Bow. I think bow. Thank you. I'm here all night.
Yeah. Do you want to hit us with your last one then?
For sure. Unfortunately, the tempo isn't picking up. I don't have another earth-shattering guitar coming into this. But I just thought I'd finish this episode with a little comfy track that's a little sad.
Okay.
So grab your blankets. We're going for a little journey. It's coming right up.
Well, you're right. That is lovely, and it is making me sleepy, I must say. No, that's a really lovely track. I'm fairly positive this is from a Square Enix game. Is this a Kingdom Hearts game?
This from a composer that you brought up on our pilot episode, Nobu Uematsu, who made Tifa's theme, Final Fantasy VII.
Oh, it's Final Fantasy VII. Yeah. I've not played Final Fantasy VII in its entirety, but yeah, it's very clearly a Square Enix game. I always look out for that sort of oboe sound, which you hear multiple times in this, and as paired with the flute as well. It's just lovely, isn't it? It's a nice little melody.
I think the bit that gets me every time is the little rise where it comes up and it goes ba 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 ba, and it goes lower. It goes like, it feels like it's gonna go over the top, but it just gets a little sadder.
Yeah.
And I think the track for me, in the place of the game Final Fantasy VII, Tifa is a character who is never at the forefront, is never there. She's Cloud's best friend from childhood. She's his rock during this incredibly world-romping adventure that has some of the most depressing moments in all of gaming. I think in the new remake for Part 2, I'm slightly worried for the game, because the Part 2 in the original Final Fantasy VII ends at the lowest point the game ever sees. And if people know, they know. And I'm worried that they're going to stop it at the same point, and people are going to have to wait 3 years to claw their eyes out saying, I want to know, why is Cloud not happy? My boy Cloud. But Tifa is that exact point. I think sometimes when Cloud looks at Tifa, he's happy. And when sometimes Cloud looks at Tifa, he's sad. Because they could have had a very peaceful life in the village they grew up, never leaving. But leaving that village causes them so much pain. I think that the theme gets that perfectly. Tifa wants to go back, but she also wants to fight with Cloud to help you.
Yeah, no, absolutely love it. I think it's they always have that sort of like female theme within Final Fantasy games, which is a bit more sad, isn't it? I think I'm trying to think, like Terra's theme from Final Fantasy VI is unbelievably sad. It's a very sad little melody, and even Final Fantasy IX's character, whose name escapes me, the Princess Garnet is her name. Her theme
Final
is also
Fantasy 15. It's Luna Freya.
Yeah.
But I think for Final Fantasy VII, a lot of people would think of Aerith's, which it's the more popular theme. It's the one more well known. But this track for me makes me root for my homegirl, and not for, but not for Aerith, personally.
Yeah. I was sat there listening to that, and I was thinking this could definitely as well be some sort of sad interlude. Maybe not sad, actually. Maybe sad is the wrong word. It's a very it's a bit melancholic, sure, but it still has that hope in it. But I was going to say that it could be situated in an anime, couldn't it? It could be very much sort of like a it does actually sound a bit like, home, doesn't it? I guess is maybe the word I'm looking for. Yeah, very, very beautiful. I love it. I think Nobuo Uematsu is such a genius with thematic writing, and especially in how it portrays the specific character. Each theme he does for all of the Final Fantasy, this pool of characters, is so unique and tells a different story as well. not just with the protagonists, but also the antagonists as well. Like, I think one of the best Final Fantasy pieces of music is from Final Fantasy VI. It's Kefka's theme, which is the final theme that you have against him. It's like Dancing Mad, or like Dancing Mad or something. It's something like that. And he's like this, crazy clown person, and it's in the name, Dancing Mad.
I think one of the saving graces of Nobuo Uematsu is, I was thinking to myself, as you said there, he does such incredible storytelling through his music. And I was thinking to myself, but he must hit and miss. There's so many Final Fantasies, and there are some good and some bad ones. And I was like, you know what? He did Final Fantasy 13, and then I looked at his discography. Dude doesn't miss. He didn't do Final Fantasy 13. The only one I can say is wildly hated.
Yeah, okay.
Good for him. Yeah, he really dodged the bullet.
He knew. Maybe that's why. Maybe that's why it wasn't a good game. Who knows? Maybe the game music was more pivotal to the actual game itself than they realised.
If you go through it, he's done Final Fantasy 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14, 15.
Yeah.
It's like, he really did just like save himself at the end there. Yeah. Good job, buddy.
He does a really good job, I think, of using that instrumentation. I mean, when I hear that orchestra sort of style of playing, and the way that he moves through a theme as well, it's just I can't even find the right words to describe it. It's just so him, I think. But I think maybe that's maybe the only thing that I can fault it for, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But if I hear a piece of music by Nobuo Uematsu, I can say, that's a Nobuo Uematsu piece. Which I think maybe for some purists might say that's a good thing, but sometimes it's good to be eclectic and to branch out from what you're known for doing. But I mean, credit to him, he found a formula for him that works, and he's reproducing it on such a large scale
and doing it for years.
Yeah, for years and years and years, apart from 13, of course.
Of course. Yeah, he took a little early retirement, then came back.
Yeah. Right, shall we have the final one then?
The final piece, Phil.
Yeah.
Am I going to sleep, Phil, or are we going somewhere?
I think you're going to be waking up from this final one. So, I think this one needs no introduction. It is definitely a banger. So, hold on to your horses. So
I can say that when this game came out, this theme had no right to go so unbelievably hard.
especially for what is considered probably one of the worst of this entire franchise of games. It
For a
is
game where you did a lot of tripping, they didn't trip on this.
absolutely not. It is the Super Smash Bros. Brawl main theme tune, and this was released for the Wii. Now, I mean, I feel like we could spend an entire episode speaking about the Wii. I think it's such an iconic game console that was marketed for its specific use of the wavy magic Wii remote.
I just thought it was incredible that they brought Pavarotti on to do this incredible piece. Absolutely stellar performance from Pavarotti, one of his best.
I think I'm trying to think actually that the other Smash Bros themes, they do feature voice. So I wanted to do one of the themes from Super Smash Bros, and I had to listen to all of them. And I instinctively I wanted to do Melee because I think Melee for me has a big place in my heart when I used to play it on the GameCube and get my friends round and my brother was playing and it's such a childhood game for me. But then when I think about the actual music itself, this one is just it. Yeah, you're right. It had no place in a game like this, and for it to slap so hard is just incredible.
I mean, when you think about it, for me, from Melee, it's the character selection theme that sticks around in my mind.
You
open up the cutscene for this, and it's like sweeping voices.
Yeah.
There's a cutscene where every fighter you can ever dream of being in a game is fighting monsters, and they're coming together. And as a kid, when we were around, oh my! You opened it up on Christmas. Oh, you were eating good.
Yeah, it's a shame that the game obviously had a little bit of a bad reception because of the introduction with Meta Knight, and because it's a fighting game, its place is in fighting game tournaments. But obviously, a lot of fighting game tournaments realised that Meta Knight was just far too strong, and so a lot of places would just ban Meta Knight use completely because it would just be an unfair advantage for whoever played Meta Knight.
I mean, it was in his name.
Yeah,
like, he was ready to take the meta by storm.
Yeah.
Which I'm pretty sure is the name of his side B.
Yeah. I don't actually know the name of his side B.
But for me, obviously there's lots of other anti-competitive mechanics, iconically tripping. Who thought of passively having a chance to fall over on the floor and eat dirt?
It's just ridiculous, isn't it? I think obviously with it being released on the Wii, one thing we have to remember is that they wanted to be able to maybe make it a bit more accessible for as many people as possible, and perhaps maybe adding in the tripping was a kind of like a quote unquote
funny
handicap, funny sort of thing, making it fair ground for everyone. There's a bit of randomness in there. And that is fundamentally what the game is about. It's about a random mishmash of all of these different characters from the Nintendo universe put together. And if you take away the fighting game aspect of it, which has no items, it does become quite a rigid game. But perhaps the game is supposed to be played with items, and the randomness of picking up a Pokeball, and you throw it out, and sometimes you get a lowly Meowth, and then the other time you get Dialga. It's like it's supposed to perhaps maybe have that randomness to it.
I think you've hit that on the money, because notoriously Nintendo has absolutely hated the Smash Melee, hasn't supported it, has DMCA take down most of the content out there that have. They've just recently forced a permit, so you have to actually apply personally for you to hold an event that's above a certain amount of money. people who run the events actually can't make profit from the events. That's a rule, which is just inherently out there to crush the little man. But I think at the time, people who grew up with Melee came to Super Smash Bros. Brawl and needed something that was just a new Melee. And I don't think they realized at the time that they already had it. Melee as a competitive game is absolutely incredible to watch. It's brilliant. Personally, I prefer other fighting games to watch. However, there's only so many times I can see the same Fox versus Fox matchup and
Fox versus Marth, Fox versus Falco. Yeah, no, it's I mean, it still holds up today. I mean, you're right. There are obviously fewer Melee tournaments that happen, but they do still happen. And I think it is a shame that there is a lot of Nintendo content that is restricted to so many people, and they do like to keep a tight fist over what's theirs, don't they, Nintendo? But I mean, it's their stuff, I guess. It's their IP. So I guess they can do with it.
You have to admit the guy who his name literally just escaped me. The guy Sakurai. That's his name. Masahiro Sakurai. With Super Smash Bros. Ultimate in the future, we will never be able to recapture that game. There is no game that will come close to as an insane roster as that. And I use this always as an example that, the final character, when they did the Super Smash Bros. Brawl, they made a poll which was asking people who were their favorite characters to come to Smash. And the number one character was Sora from Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah.
Now, that was never going to happen because of the absolute licensing hell that is Disney and Square Enix at the same time.
Yeah.
Famously don't let their IPs out anywhere outside of Japan. And other than Disney, obviously, but that they will want all the profit. And the fact that the final character in Ultimate being Sora, and he managed to work on it for 9 years to finally get him into the game, I think Sakurai can take a bow.
Yeah.
He will never create a better game, and I don't think anyone else will create such an incredible character. When are you going to go into a game and hear Steve from Minecraft versus Sephiroth?
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. Oh, that is funny. It's a shame actually that Sora is a bit of a meh character actually in Ultimate. I don't think he's ranked very highly.
I mean, I think the way they wanted to do it was, hey, look, it's our last character, and they obviously wanted to make sure everyone could play him to make as much money as possible.
Yeah. Ultimate is a very good game. I think it really does bring all the best of the other Smash Bros. Games together, and I think it will live on for quite some time until inevitably maybe they bring out another Super Smash Bros. Game. Just a quick note actually on this particular game. So in Super Smash Bros. Brawl there were a number of composers that worked on the game. Funnily enough, Nobuo Uematsu, our favourite, was one of the composers for this game. As well as this guy Shogo Sakai, might not be a guy actually, but yeah, Shogo Sakai, who did Kirby, but there were 7 composers that were credited with this music, and I don't think I've ever seen in a game that many composers for a piece of music. Although I think perhaps maybe for the next episode that we do, I will probably try and beat that. I'll see if I can find a game with more than 7 composers. And maybe a quick question for you as well. So, Super Smash Bros. Brawl is the 8th best-selling Wii game of all time as of 2023. Can you guess what the first is?
Does Wii Sports count?
It does, yeah, and it's Wii Sports, yeah.
It came free.
Yeah, I know.
It's a cheat code.
I think comparatively with the next one, which I'm trying to remember now, it might have been. Oh gosh, no, I should have written them down. But it was something like 80 million versus 40 million. So like Wii Sports being the 80 and the next one down was the 40 million. It's just, yeah, it seems a bit like it's cheating because it was given with every Wii copy.
Every demo disc from a magazine had Wii Sports in it somehow.
I know. Yeah.
Well, I think that just about wraps it up. Thanks for joining us this week on the Beatbox. We listened to tracks from Lost Ark, Dawn of War 2, Final Fantasy VII Remake, It Takes Two, The Walking Dead, and Super Smash Bros. Brawl. Whether you're listening to us from work, school, or wherever, I hope you'll join us next time for some more beats.